We were holding you up from starting your day at the Zurich Classic. How good of a day did that turn out to be for you?
Oh, dude, that was a heaven week. I mean, that whole week was perfection. I mean, shoot, I only had to write 2 stories in 4 days, so I just get to walk around and watch golf all day. My life is pretty easy.
Yes, we could hear it in your voice that we were keeping him 2 questions too long.
Where's that mimosa train?
Oh no,
that's right. Like it was great information, but we could feel the sunshine and the course pulling him in. Great write-ups over at The Athletic. The state of the program we've been talking about, and really has dominated the first hour here, and just kind of talking about some of what you were able to find there. And let us urge you again, if you have not already, to get your Athletic subscription. We talked to Jeff Duncan yesterday about the Saints, and he was fantastic. And Miller, Brody has the same deal in talking about LSU. A fantastic insider, and would be worth the subscription over The Athletic. Your first question to Orgeron is really what dominated the discussion of the hour, and I think by his remarks and by his smirk. He has been asked it before. What do you think the pressure is on the head coach for LSU going into the season after they have experienced such a roller coaster of success and pitfalls?
Yeah, I think I'm always skeptical to use a word like hot seat, because I don't think Ed Orgeron's on the hot seat or anything like that necessarily, but there is a definite pressure on Ed Orgeron, right? The idea that you go 5-5, then you add in the, I don't know, for lack of a better term, cultural issues throughout the team last year. And then you add in, not that he's directly actually been, like, implemented in anything, but then you add in, like, the sexual assault scandal going on. And everything's just kind of a mess right now. And I think it just kind of adds to a certain pressure on the program as a whole. I don't even want to hone in on Ed Orgeron, but, and just how messy those hires were. Everything about it, it wasn't just they went 5-5. It was a disastrous 5-5 in a lot of ways, and I think that leads to and then I think something T-Bob and I were talking about is just, it's not even just that there's pressure, it's that they have so much talent this year, right? And I firmly believe this is one of the more talented teams in the SEC, that if they don't win this year, if they go 7-5 or something this year, that means there are even more failures. You know what I mean? That means those hires must have kind of bombed. So I'm not saying hot seat, but if things go bad, I do think Ed Orgeron could be in trouble.
Yeah. Brody Miller joining us here on The Athletic. The state of the program is up over there. It is worth the read and gives you a real understanding of how good this roster is, Brody, because we were talking about it earlier this week, and I think it was almost easy for people in our business in the immediate offseason to talk about what the hell's going on at LSU, and LSU's in some serious trouble, and LSU, Ed Orgeron might be on the hot seat, and 5-5, what could be next? And then you start looking at the roster, and then you start talking to people who understand recruiting, and you say, look, man, they have a championship-level roster. From your eyes, how good, how competitive is this roster going into the summer and anticipated next fall?
I think what makes this roster kind of look good is, one, just, you talk about recruiting, right? And they had 3 straight top 5 classes. The freshman, sophomore, and junior classes are all, and that's as good of a 3-year run as in recent memory at LSU. And then probably even more importantly than that, those base is really talented, right? Your core. But then I think the biggest victory, obviously, was bringing back all of those draft-eligible juniors and seniors. Your Andre Anthony's, your Ollie Gays, your Glenn Logan's. I mean, the list goes on and on. So what that really did is the disaster of 2020, I mean, at its core was you lose so much talent, but more than losing your talent, you lost your infrastructure, you lost your leadership, you lost the guys who know how to do it the right way. It was just all of a sudden 2020 was left with a team that probably wasn't well equipped to handle a pandemic and all that. You know what I mean? And I think what happens now is you have a really, really, really talented freshman and sophomore class right now, mixed with a really healthy portion of seniors right now who have been through it, who are embarrassed about last year and all of that. So now you have the chip on your shoulder nature that you need. So I think it's just that good hybrid of experience with upside and ability, and I think that's the key. But obviously, on the other hand, it's just talented. You have a lot of guys who are high draft pick caliber guys. And I think there were some question mark position groups say in February, there's still some questions, but there's no real glaring hole anymore. I think it's a pretty well-built roster.
How do you feel about the quarterback situation given the what has happened over the last couple of weeks to that room?
Yeah, because I think, we all eventually expected TJ Finley to leave, right? So to some extent, that's not changing much, but it just does lead to that small glimmer of this could go wrong soon because, and it's to be clear, they're in a very good situation. They have a good problem to have. You have two quarterbacks who would start for a lot of SEC teams right now, Brennan and Johnson. But say it's Brennan, is Johnson going to sit and stay? Say it's Johnson, I do not expect Myles Brennan to sit and stay. And all of a sudden, and to be clear, I think Nussmeier's awesome, but you have one quarterback and a true freshman as your backup, and that's kind of the problem they've tried to avoid the whole time. But I'm sure you're also asking about, who I think has a leg and up, and I do just kind of think Max Johnson, just the buzz that goes around is that it's Max Johnson. And one really interesting thing from, that one piece we added to the state of the program this year was we did a what other coaches in the SEC are saying thing.
Yes.
And, anonymously. And we had two different SEC coaches that are saying this. We only quoted one of them, but two different people were like, Max Johnson's our staff thinks Max Johnson's better. We're more scared of Max Johnson, and I don't know what to make of that. You never know. You don't want to take that with a grain of salt, but that's just interesting to me.
Yeah. Did you learn anything in your discussion with Finley? It was a great write-up and in-depth discussion with him on his time at LSU. Did you take away anything from that conversation?
Well, good question. I think the thing I always go back to with Finley is just that it's obviously a sad story that a guy, Pocket comes for a year and has to leave and all that, but he's also a pretty big success story in a lot of ways because he was the lowest rated member of that class, a 3-star, who, I think everyone you talked to probably thought he would never see the field. And then he ends up showing a lot of upside, wins 2 games, looks pretty good in those 2 games. And now, even though he's leaving and that's a bummer for him and all that, he's leaving in a position now of his stock has risen drastically in the past 12 months, right? Where now, I'm not sure, we'll see what happens where he ends up, but he's listing pretty big schools pursuing him that weren't pursuing him, going into college. And now teams are talking to him about how much upside he has. So I think that's my big takeaway. But yeah, I think the other thing is just, I don't know where he's going to go, but the fact that he's listing Alabama, Auburn, Houston, Penn State, Ohio State. I don't know who's actually going to happen, but just that kind of shows you, I guess, the interest in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said he wanted to, one of the biggest talking points that he had when he was getting, I guess, re-recruited was that he wanted to play right away. So why would he even list schools like Alabama, Ohio State, some of these places that have quarterbacks in place?
Yeah, no, I think we all had that same thought. It's one of those things where recruiting is an awkward world because, you have that thought, and you don't want to tell, no one wants to insinuate to a 19-year-old that, hey, Bryce Young's really good, but at the same time, I think we all had that thought in our back of our mind. I don't know. I don't have any intel on really their quarterback rooms. He said that Auburn, for example, told him that he can push Bo Nix for the job. Who knows? But, I think all I'll say is I think we were all thinking that a little bit.
What do you think Major Burns does for the secondary, and what's he do for the roster?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, at least me personally, I don't expect him to, play this, even if the eligibility and all that works out. I could be really wrong on this. I'm wrong quite often. But I don't expect him to come in and, be a guy right away. He's basically a redshirt freshman that can kind of ease in a little bit. But I think what he does is he kind of, I think Shea Dixon pointed out it very well yesterday or 2 days ago, he just, officially, cements a success in how much LSU addressed that safety room in the past 2 seasons, where that was a problem going into 2020, just the overall depth there and all that. And then now you all of a sudden are at a point where Jay Ward breaks out, obviously. So now you feel really good about, at least this year, or pretty good, I should say. And now you had Jordan Tolles, Paige Ryan, and Derek Davis, who were 2 at the top of the entire country, Matthew Langlois, and now Major Burns. And all of a sudden, you have 5, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 guys with 4 years of eligibility. So that room, and also 5 guys that they think really highly of, and that's not always the case. So I just think it's bolstered more than anything. I don't know if I expect an instant impact out of Major Burns, but it just proves that room is really deep now.
And we recently had Corey Connor on to switch to running back a little bit, and the guy from Ohio made some waves with how he was represented here. And there's some whispers of him pushing for early playing time. I say that to get to this. What's the rumors with Trey Bradford kind of entering into the transfer portal? There's smoke. Is there any fire?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all heard the same things. And my only brief experience is that when you hear that a guy is going to transfer pretty, we all hear it, and then 2 weeks later it still doesn't happen,
yeah,
that tends to be a decent sign. I think Eli Ricks is the ultimate example there, but there are many others of those that come to mind that you hear it and then it doesn't happen. That usually means something good. But, it's a tough situation because I think I've been on your show twice being like, yeah, I'm high on Trey Bradford. Maybe that's just me trying to, get the buy low stock there. But still, I was high on him, but you can't blame him if he does because he missed a lot of the spring with injury. And then, it's a crowded room, and I think the room's still open for grabs. I think someone can still take it, but it's 6 deep. That's tough. And then you add in missing the spring. It's a situation where I'm never going to begrudge a kid for seeing that and being like, all right, I'll go start at, a really good group of 5 schools.
Do you see anybody kind of taking the reins in that running back room, or is it going to be very much almost by situation?
Yeah, I think if you go through the state of the program, if there's one position you can tell that I'm like, I don't know, man, it's probably running back. But I do think Ty Davis Price, absolutely going into the summer has the head start. He ended the spring on a really strong note and all that. I think it's safe to say he has he's in the driver's seat a little bit, but it just still to me feels so unknown because, you had the Trey Bradfords, but I think they're hoping to see one of those freshmen, I'm not even going to say start, but they would love to see Corey Kiner, I think, really add something new to that room and play right away. They would love John Emery to put it all together, and I think every LSU fan would. So, if I'm, putting money down, I take Davis Price at -110 odds or something, but I don't know if I feel confident at all, which is a terrible answer.
Window is open. Brody Miller from The Athletic joining us here, dropping some knowledge on LSU football going into the offseason. You brought up Ricks, and Stingley was just awarded 7, and it seems like he's starting to really kind of embrace that going into next year, which will, obviously probably be his final year of college football. What is your anticipation around those 2 cornerbacks and how good they could be?
It's not even remotely a stretch to say that it's the best cornerback duo, at least going into the season in the country by a good margin. I can't even think of many precedents in recent memory that I can think of that, a team has 2 All-Americans coming back at outside corner. Obviously, we all know, Pro Football Focus ranked them the 1 and 3 defensive backs total returning in the country. It's a pretty scary duo. And even last year, by the way, I know the defense was a mess, but obviously, Ricks had the great year, but he was a freshman. Stingley was banged up. Even with the defensive mess, if you look at the advanced stats and all that, the outside was still locked down. The outside was still, I don't know, I have the QB rating on me, but it was still, completion percentage were in the 40s. The outside was fine. And now Stingley, you would assume, is back to full health. Ricks growing with another year, which can never be understated. I think there's a lot of reasons to think that that duo is the best in the country. And the main thing that I think that does is it just gives a huge safety blanket to Durante Jones and this defense. Yeah. The idea that, the defensive line and cornerback are 2 areas that are just kind of secure. And now, maybe safety and linebacker still need to be figured out, but having those things, you can scheme around those things because you have them set.
You mentioned it, and last one, I'll get you out of here. Appreciate your time. Brody Miller joining us here on this Thursday morning talking LSU football. He's over at The Athletic. Remember to get your subscription to The Athletic where you can read more of what Brody has going on. He's got an exclusive sit-down with TJ Finley, which is fantastic, and he's also got the state of the program, which we focused on a lot during the first hour and diving into the depth with him now here during this segment. You brought up what the others are saying about LSU, and I thought it was a fantastic quote in what you were able to get from a rival assistant coach in the conference saying that Ed Orgeron, how much will he be involved because Ed knows just enough to be dangerous, was the quote. Do you think that he learned what that danger level could be next year, and what do you anticipate the position of Ed Orgeron going into this season after experiencing so much success with guys that he trusted in 19 to maybe putting his thumb a little too far into the plan last season from the head coaching spot?
Yeah, I actually got to answer this because I think to some extent, and you can agree with this, it's one of those quotes you have to put in there.
Yeah,
you have to put it in
so
there.
Good.
Great quote.
It's so good.
But it's still it's kind of a cheap line, right? Because it's Ed's always going to be, that's always going to be one of his huge disses because of the Canada disaster and all that. And it's always going to be a thing. And you're right. There were those same problems last year a little bit, so you can't ignore them. But it's still probably 10% overblown, right? So it's still a little bit more than a thing. It is he is the head coach, guys. So it's not, but I do get the criticism and all that. But it is worth watching because Orgeron has said vocally multiple times, at least defensively, he is going to be more involved this year. He is not going to let mistakes. He's not going to let the defense run something they don't know how to run. That's been his kind of repeated phrase. Now, granted, that's something I don't think anyone's going to criticize you getting involved in. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. But I know it's another not Brody non-answer, so I'm the worst at that. But, yeah, I think, is it a thing? Of course. It's always going to be part of Ed's track record. But I don't really think that's like a fundamental flaw for him anymore.
I agree. Great write-up on the state of the program. Thank you for dropping some insight with us this morning. We look forward to having you on again. Thank you, Brody.
Thanks for the salesmanship. I appreciate it. Have a good one, guys.
You got it, man. See you. Brody Miller checking in from The Athletic this morning, talking in on the state of the program.